The Edifice Complex podcast is brought to you by DCM, the drawing specialists, Blue Rhythm commissioning software, and Sensor Suite, the future of intelligent buildings.
Welcome to the Edifice Complex, the property design and development podcast. Let your hosts Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean keep you up with who is innovating and doing great work, perspective on the adjacent possible, and challenges to the status quo.
Welcome to the Edifice Complex. I'm Robert Bean, your co-host and unofficial mediator, here with my colleague and official agitator, friend, and Yoda of most everything to do with buildings, Mr. Adam Muggleton. Say hello, Sir Yoda.
Hello, Yoda. So, here we are, international. We're on lockdown, yet we're international. I love technology, right?
That's great.
We're flying halfway around the world here today, so looking forward to this one.
Yeah, so there's commissioning, and then there's commissioning. And our guest today is head of asset requirements and commissioning at the Copenhagen airport and owner of CX Planner, which is a browser-based commissioning management tool. Before joining the Copenhagen airport, he worked at a number of consulting engineering firms, working with some pretty impressive clients, Novo Nordisk, Moller Maersk, Nordia, and Metro City Ringen. So welcome to the show, Thomas Toftgaard Jarløv.
Thank you.
So far we haven't butchered too much of the Danish language.
But we will.
We will. We will. Thomas, you graduated from Copenhagen School of Science and Technology with a degree in energy technology and commissioning processes. You also spent some time at Madison, Wisconsin University, again in commissioning processes. And I got to tell you, global air transportation systems are under attack right now by this pandemic, and that makes you one of the unique players in the world in this crazy game of life that we're in. Tell our guests how you managed to find yourself at an airport, in one of the most envious countries in the world. Adam and I both love Denmark. You're there, and you're making that airport work in really tough times. Tell us about that. How'd you get there?
How did they get to the airport?
No.
It was, yeah.
Down the road, to a left.
Yeah.
50 kroner.
I came to the airport 5 years ago. I found the airport in Denmark. Yeah, or they found commissioning and me, and it was the starting for commissioning at Copenhagen Airport. They contacted me and said, Thomas, we would like some commissioning, and I said, that's a great idea. And I arrived at the airport and said, what kind of commissioning do you want? And then say, well, commissioning sounds smart, but we don't know how to. And that was the starting of commissioning at the airport. And now 5 years later, we have a commissioning team and performing commissioning on all our large capacity projects. Well, at the time, there's not so many projects. We're more handling and maintaining our assets due to the coronavirus.
All right,
Wow.
so we'll talk about that. But how did they find you? How did they identify you as a commissioning expert in Denmark?
Well, I worked at a consulting engineering firm before, where I was a commissioning consultant, doing the leading, being commissioning a leader on various projects, and also being a commissioning specialist, performing some of the individual commissioning tasks. Yeah. And well, I have a wiki about commissioning, and I like to talk about commissioning. I write about commissioning in Danish mostly, and I think in that way they found me. And I fit the profile because I like to rethink how you do the commissioning. We have our standards and normal methods, but each individual owner has different processes and needs a different way to implement the commissioning process. So it was also a match between a large company with many internal processes and many established way to do things. And they wanted to do commissioning, but you cannot just take a standard and say, we do it like this standard when you have this whole organization behind. So it's like matching the standard with the existing organization, and that thinking and merging is one of my specialities.
Interesting. So coming out of high school, right, and again, I'm not familiar with the educational systems in Denmark, as we are familiar in our own countries, but you know, you get to be 17, 18 years of age, and then you're looking at your whole life ahead of you. You're standing there on the shores of Denmark staring at the windmills thinking, what do I want to do with my life? What went through your mind at that time?
Many things and nothing at the same time, I think, back then. But it didn't allow to be, well, my grandfather, he's always been working with electricity and developing new products. So something with electricity and that kind has always been at my mind. So I started becoming an electrician, a normal electrician who's working at normal housing, and then also doing a lot of industrial work at large construction sites and at large companies. And it was during that time that I love to be an electrician, but it's only you supply the power, and after that you don't do anything more. But someone has to take the power and use it for something. You have a ventilation plant. You deliver the power to the ventilation plant, and someone handles the ventilation. I was just missing something behind the power supply. So like the integrations, and it was during my time finding that these integrations, there was something special about them. So many parties included, and if one part in this integration failed and didn't do the work correctly, then everything would fail. So during my time as an electrician, I just knew I had to get some more about the integrations. So that was actually why I started at Copenhagen School of Design and Technology to becoming an energy technologist. An energy technologist is an education about all installations which uses energy in some kind of way. So cooling system, heating systems, all that kind. And it was during that education that I found commissioning, or commissioning found me. I heard it one day from one of our teachers. He said, commissioning something. And in Danish, commissioning is not a normal word. So I couldn't pronounce it. I couldn't spell it. So I just knew back then I need to know more about this. So, and that was, I think, 8-9 years ago. And then commissioning has been with me ever since.
Wow.
That's a good journey from electrician to technologist to commissioner supremo at the airport, right?
Yeah.
Well done.
Really
Congratulations.
But you know, I mean, one of the nice things about that story is, you know, having some background, hands-on experience, field experience, and then going to school, which then of course broadens your understanding of what you learned in the previous years, and now you're applying that. And I think, Adam, both you and I, you know, value that. I know when we were hiring engineers out of school, when we had our consulting business, is that we always placed a high value on any of the students coming out of the universities that had hands-on experience, always. And in fact, if we could find somebody that actually had a trade background and then went to get a degree, they were always way more valuable than the person that first came out of university with no hands-on experience. Well, academics get you so far, you know, and you might end up at the same place, but an academic that gets out and gets screamed at by a client for a couple of years is different than an academic that hides amongst the walls of the university. They're two different people, right? So yeah, you've built up a nice background for your position where you are today, for sure.
I also say that normally in commissioning, especially my own commissioning team, when we're hiring and looking at people to do the commissioning, we also look if they have some construction background, have been working with the hands, have tried to been working with a contractor, been on the other side of the table, so they know the trouble they're going to be in after.
Adam, you're a commissioning guy too. I mean,
yeah, sometimes I call my job description could be summarized as consequences. If I arrive at your job and I'm having a bad day, it's normally bad for a lot more people around me.
Is there a parable about kick the cat that goes along that lines, that that somebody's at work and they get screamed at, and then they scream at everybody below them, and then they finally, the last person to leave home comes home and then kicks the cat. Yeah. It all started in the office.
yeah, that's interesting. So if you're a young person listening to this, there's a great lesson to take away here, and that is you can change course, right? Your career is a journey. You can zig and zag and still wind up in a great place, right? So, you start off as an electrician, and that's what my son is trying to be, and that's a great job here, I presume, in Denmark, right? And there's nothing wrong with carrying on with that, but as you say, you saw there's more, right? You go down that path, you see, oh, this connects to this, and I wonder what's going on there. And you zag into energy, then you zag into commissioning, right? So, that's a good takeaway. If you're still not sure what you want to do, trust your instincts. No one knows what they really want to do, right? You wind up going where the river takes you, right? The trick is, do you maximize and make the most of it, or just let it just sit there in a coma, right? That's the difference, right? So, that's a great life lesson there. But going back to Denmark, so what fascinated me about you and why I started stalking you like a crazy ex-girlfriend online was because, one, you've written a book, and we'll talk about that later, but two, I've been lucky enough to work in 21 countries, and that's dumb luck, by the way. That wasn't by design. But what fascinates me is every single one has a different understanding and takeaway on commissioning, right? I've never worked in Denmark. So in, say, the UK, where I started, commissioning was something you accidentally tripped up and fell into, right? So what's it like? Is there a path in Denmark where it's an easy transition into commissioning, or is it a bit of a renegade, out there, sort of not understood thing?
It's becoming a more normal. It has been this thing that no one except the commissioning guys wants to touch, because what is this kind of commissioning? It's just more money to some guys running around and testing things, but it's becoming accepted now.
Yeah,
we can see that we have Danish standard for commissioning. It was developed back in 2014. So it's quite old now, but it's still going strong, and it's being activated on various projects, and the sustainability certifications like DGNB, LEED, BREEAM, they all also enables commissioning. So with a higher focus on sustainability, and people want to have sustainability certifications, they need to use commissioning. So commissioning is getting more acceptable. And I also think that a lot of professional owners, you have new owners who is just building one house and then it's done. And then you have the professional developers who's building a lot of constructions. When you have done one construction, you know all the troubles you're getting in afterwards, and especially if you're going to handle the O&M also. So they are looking for some tools to get fewer faults and an easier way from project to operation. So they are enabling commissioning. So commissioning is getting more acceptable. And then Copenhagen Airport, as an owner, has the internal commissioning department. Region H, one of the large government department, does also have their own commissioning department. All of our consulting houses do also have commissioning departments. So it's getting more normal now.
Right. That's interesting that a big sort of asset owner like Copenhagen Airport have that, because for me that's one of the real values. So in North American terminology, you're doing what we would call continuous commissioning, right? You're refining, optimizing, and trying to get the efficiencies sort of like hardwired into the systems, and also as uses change in different parts of the airports, you're dealing with that, right? So that is a sort of life cycle asset function, if you like.
So,
if you like.
some kind of like that, yeah. In my department at the airport, I have the tactical asset managers. So they are setting the requirements for all our assets, buildings and ventilation, coolings, everything. And then I have the commissioning team. So we are setting the owner's project requirements, and then the commissioning team is verifying the requirements during the project. But we do still own the assets even after the project, because our asset managers, they need to do the reinvestments. So we have this continuous, actually from cradle to cradle, for our assets.
That's interesting.
Adam, are you surprised that Denmark and the airport in particular, I mean, 6 years or 5 years, I guess, or 6 years, it seems like almost it's new to the country, even though the country is well known for engineering capabilities and quality products. Seems to me something like that would have been a part of the engineering culture for 50 years, 60 years. But is that saying, Tom, you're not saying that the Danes are so good at their engineering and the trades are so good at the assembly? Commissioning wasn't an issue back then. Is that what you're saying?
No comments, but well, it depends who you're asking. Of course, we have some individuals who has been doing commissioning for ages, but I think it's around 10 years ago when the commissioning, the word began to establish in the building industry, and from that and on, it has become more normal. I think 7 years ago, commissioning was not just some guys running around and being police. Now it's normal. Now it's acceptable, and people, they know they need commissioning.
Right. I have a sort of working theory that, so for example, in let's call them the Anglo countries like America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, right? The contracting environment there is very adversarial. There's clear delineation between like, okay, I've designed it, now you build it, and there's a hard line between them, right? And my theory in this culture is that commissioning has emerged as a response to the design and construction teams not being able to deliver buildings that work very well. And I'll fight that that's a hill I'll die on, because there's no commissioning in laptops or cars, right? You know why? Because them things work perfectly when they come out of the box. Your building does not. So I've always been constantly amazed I've not been made redundant by technology, because, you pay hundreds of millions of dollars for an airport, you expect it to work perfectly, right? Why not? It doesn't say in the documents, there'll be an airport, I'm okay with 10,000 defects. I've never read that in any construction document anywhere, right? So in Europe, though, when I've worked in Switzerland and Spain and a few places, I find it's less adversarial in my past. And I haven't worked in Europe for a long time now, right? But it was less adversarial between the design and construction teams. There was a lot more overlap. There was a lot more responsibility by the design team into the construction process and beyond. Is that what it's like in Denmark?
Yeah. Normally, when the designer has made the design, they do follow in the construction phase. They do site visits and keep participating in the project. So there's a more overlap, and they are throughout the project and also in the final inspection. So yeah, regarding the cars and commissioning of them, also think that at construction normally it's different every time. It's not the same. Okay, somehow some constructions are the same, but all the technology at this room we want to 22 degrees, and this regulation. There's a lot of changes and different things each time at each construction site.
Okay, so a master's degree in project management. I had a 2-year running argument with my professor, which obviously I lost because I wanted to graduate. But
you gave him that one, did you?
Yeah, he said there is no reason why a building cannot be like a car and have 0 defects, right? The reason it doesn't happen, there's no consequences and no one really asks for it, right? So my pushback was yours. Everything's different, because this is what I've been indoctrinated with. Everything's different, every job's different. And his answer to that was, so Adam, every toilet that ever was installed in every building is different, correct? Every door that was ever installed is different, correct? No. So he was right. What he's basically saying is the R&D spend in construction is vanishingly small. It's a 0.5%, 1/4% if you research it worldwide, right? In fact, the construction industry outsources its R&D to manufacturers, which is great, but what you get is manufacturers telling you what they want you to do, and not necessarily working with something else, right? So as you rightly point out, commissioning is also an integration tool, right? It's a quality check. I hate that because it implies a contractor does it. He shouldn't, right? But it's also an integration thing, because what you're saying is, even with the best design and construction team in the world, these things are not necessarily been put together before, and they need to be tested, right? So there's that, right? But I have sympathy for every building's different, but if I sit back and think about it, I do actually find myself agreeing with my professor, and I think that's just an excuse. That's like me saying, I want a 6-pack, but this 1-pack's awesome because I don't want to leave my sofa. Anyway, that's my trigger over, so I shall sit myself.
Well, before the show started, we talked about Danfoss, and one of the reasons why Danfoss acquired our company was because we were engineering and building substations for district energy systems. And on a small scale, it was all about all the engineering, all of the fabrication, and then commissioning each of those devices in the plant. So once we had the flow, temperature, pressures, power requirements from the engineers, and then we could build that, and then within the facility we would test it before it got shipped out. Now, why I'm telling you the story is that before we got into the substation manufacturing, we were a distributor selling components, and we would ship out whatever Danfoss made all over, everywhere. And we would always get calls back, like calls from, why does the wire smell like this? It's because somebody burnt the crap out of it, or, how come we can't get this to do this, And we would go through this, if-then statements, like a commissioning process, if this, then. And we always had problems with when we sent out components, but when we prefabricated the stuff within the facility, we would ship out these substations that were way more complex, far more sophisticated, had way more instrumentation on it, and we never heard back from them, So we would sell a thermostat, we would call it a boomerang because we would get it back. We would sell a substation, we called it a stick, because once we threw it out, we never heard from it again, So, and we know that in prefabricated buildings, and Adam, you and I have talked about this before, that it's possible, to produce architecture that has the characteristics of automobile manufacturing, and it is possible, but it's a culture, and it's a worldwide culture of still building things on site, and that will always be a problem for us. If we don't get that resolved, we'll never be able to deliver the cars, the computers. Even I was reading stories on some of the cruise ships, that they were the largest cruise ship in the world, only took 2 years to build. Well, you look at a 34-story high-rise building, also takes 2 years to build. You take a 17,000 square foot custom home, also takes 2 years to build. But Boeing produces a 747 in I think it's under 6 weeks or 6 months. It's some crazy number, right? So it's just the processes that we use in the culture. Ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to.
So is there a a movement to modularization in Denmark? Are there any sort of like modular construction practices emerging?
I don't think we have any movement, but of course there are some projects with it. I don't know.
It started off in the UK with modularized mechanical rooms or plant rooms and electrical rooms, and then they started doing okay, well, if I'm building a high rise, I can stack all the bathrooms, and then they modularize them and just stack them, right? That is how you increase quality, reduce time, win, right? But you need repetition.
Yeah, we're building a new hotel at the airport.
Right.
Yeah, for all the passengers.
That you don't have right now.
But that hotel is built like bathroom.
Yeah.
So it is modular.
Yeah. And to be fair, building type like residential or high-rise residential, high-rise hotels lend themselves to that, right?
Yeah.
An airport is different. I mean, the best job I ever did in my career was JFK Airport in New York. To say that was a learning curve was an understatement. And it was great. It was a massive job, but unique, right? Absolutely. Yeah. It's just a massive empty shell, and then it's a massive fit-out project. And everything's like 10 miles long, 8 miles wide, there's all that. But, it still got done in 3 years. So could have built an ocean liner, I guess, or 20 jumbo jets.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, so it's interesting because, Denmark has made some pretty bold stands on decarbonization in the country. Some really aggressive targets. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit, and then also talk about how that fits in with the airport and its long-term energy needs when there's going to be no or less supply of hydrocarbons for fuel.
The airport is actually in front of being a sustainable airport. We're looking into some kind of biofuel for the planes instead of the normal fuel, with reusable stuff. I don't know the details, and we're going also for a zero carbonized airport. One of my sister departments is an energy department, so it's a department with, I think there are 10 employees, only focusing on energy optimization, energy in projects, solar panels, reusing energy all around, monitoring the energy usage. So the airport is looking very much into the energy usage and our sustainable footprint. Otherwise, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, does the airport have its own energy plant, and are you exporting that energy to other parts of the community around the airport, or are you actually pulling off a subsystem already, or a district energy system now, or it'd be cogen, I guess, trigen?
We don't have our own systems yet.
Okay.
But with the solar panels we're setting up, I think that in the future we will have enough also to supply the community around.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I can't think of a larger area available for solar gains than the surfaces of an airport.
There are some troubles in putting the solar panels at the airfield, but some reflection and maintenance.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's interesting actually. Yeah, you need a certain type of material that's non-reflective in a way, right? Yeah.
Like all the buildings around do also have some specific reflection and glare specifications to be there.
Yeah, I mean, airports really do lend themselves to district heating, right? And I think, isn't Denmark, am I mixing this up with Holland? Denmark, so residential homes in North America, we just put a furnace in and blow hot and cold air at people. It's like the bottom of the barrel, right?
It's barbaric.
We're not even on radiant, which the Romans handled 2,000 years ago, right? So, but I thought it was Denmark, but it might be mixed up with Holland. They have a lot of district systems.
Yeah.
Using waste heat energy and then pumping that out, and then there's a heat exchanger in every house. Is that what you have there?
Exactly. We also have that at the airport. So there's a lot of district heating around whole Denmark.
Oh, that's good, because I'm a big fan of that. I mean, the scale and the efficiencies you can drive off that are amazing. Yeah. Particularly with an airport, right? It's a massive heat sink and a heat suck.
It is.
To be honest.
Yeah.
But then, you start putting on, like, I know, a hotel onto that, and then an airport and residential. They can sort of like offset each other, right?
Yeah, they could. But we are doing a great job in doing the testing and balancing and commissioning, so no problem afterwards.
Yeah, I want to come back to this because there's an interesting story there. But just a sidebar in the commissioning, and Adam, you'll remember this. Robert Petitjean, and we talk about Robert Petitjean from Tour and Anderson lots because we both studied his work. But he always said, there's no point in doing the calculations at the engineering office if you're not prepared to verify it in the field.
Yes.
And that's what balancing was all about, is going out and just verifying that the flows, air, water, whatever it was, electrical flow, was as per what was designed. And when I think about energy at the airport, because you have all kinds of demands, heated water, cooled water, all different types of voltages, amperage loads must be massive there. And the whole commissioning process. And then, what does it take to commission the Copenhagen airport in a day? Like, what happens in a day? Tell our audience what happens a day of your life at the airport.
Yeah. We had one of our large construction projects, the new Pier E. I think we had around 500 different systems to commissioning. And wow. We had like 2 months to do it all.
Sounds good.
So like every time, but due to commissioning, we had 2 months instead of 1 week. So some good. And then when we have to do a commissioning test of a ventilation plant, starting at the day, I have to verify that we have all the functional descriptions, that the BMS is updated with the latest screen dumps of the system, that I have received the pre-test documentation. That's something like a commissioning test as a system integration test, which the consultant and contractor have done together, has been fulfilled and uploaded to us. And after that, I am calling one of our technicians from our BMS office, and then the technician and me and the contractor and one from the construction management is going out to this ventilation plant and starting the full scale test of it. So the visual inspection, the functional test, the system integration test with our fire safety systems, the manual override from operational center, all that kind. And then after we do all this in the software CX Planner. So after that, we just punch a button and we have a PDF report of the test, documenting all the inputs from the individual parties. And if there were any faults, it would be sent back to our construction manager on the project, who will then give out the report and faults to the individual subcontractors who needs to do some changes. Yeah. So that would be some part of the day with a test. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so for our guests, like sorry, I'm going to shut up here in a second, but I'm fascinated by the continuum that you live on, and how there's this macro component of energy, global energy system, sustainability, reducing carbonization. All of these things have to be on your radar screen. And you work all the way down into the microsystems, looking at the small little loads and making sure that switches activate when they're supposed to activate. It's I think if I was getting out of high school and looking at a career, and I like the sciences and I like to see things work, and I had somewhere in my heart, a passion for global sustainability and environmental issues, I can't think of another career than commissioning that would hit all of the buttons. Adam, where do you sit on that?
Yeah, I agree. It's because it's about, the problem is people think commissioning is, oh, there's a bit of equipment, I turn it on, 2 checklists, thank you very much and goodbye. It's not that. It's the integration side, right? So take the air handling unit you were just talking about. How many systems does that touch? The heating system, the cooling system, control system, fire system, BMS system, and then the subsets of that, the balancing. So it's the testing of how that all works as an integrated whole, right? It's a systems approach, and I mean that in the sort of Professor Checkland way, where everything's a system, right? Earth is a system, which is in a system called the solar system, which is in a system called the universe, right? The system is only about where you draw a barrier, right?
Right.
So one of the real problems in North America is that barrier is drawn around the equipment, right? So commissioning pretty much on mid-level, low-level jobs in North America goes like this. A crane comes in, goes, yeah, rooftop unit. Electrician comes in half a day, puts the gas on, puts the power on, gas fitter comes with gas on. Some dude comes in with a check sheet and a nice haircut, goes, done, out. That is so not commissioning. That's barely even startup, right? But to the lay person, that's what commissioning is, right? And this is why it's not a cult, but it's a subset of a niche, right? But it is starting, and it warms my heart that someone like a big organization like Copenhagen Airport see the value of having a team to do that, right? Because if you want a building to run perpetually well, you have to perpetually run it well. And you have to tune everything, because everything starts, here's a new air handling unit system, and there's always a degradation over time because things deteriorate over time, right? And the goal of continuous commissioning is to keep that line flat rather than do that, right? And that takes effort and specialist expertise. You're not phoning that in with software, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. You're phoning that in with deep knowledge and expertise, and that expertise is at a systems level. This is why all good commissioning teams are multidisciplined, right? And the controls guy, keep that dude happy. Do not let him leave.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a $1 million word statement right there.
Yeah. It's like they're the wizards, right? They got the voodoo. They know how to make that black box. It's all Harry Potter stuff. I mean, literally, some jobs I go to.
You got the book and the magic wand,
I've been into some startup meetings, and the jobs, you get there, you've heard the job's bad, the designer's left, they're on like the 5th designer who doesn't know what happened, the contractor's lost money, and they look at you like you're going to sprinkle dust over the drawings and everything. Like, magic, right? And my answer to that is, if it is designed wrong and constructed wrong, it is wrong, but what I'm going to do is tell you what is wrong.
Yeah.
But that.
So Thomas, I mean, your day is never the same. I mean, there's probably some things, but for the most part, I got to be thinking 80% of your day is unique challenges. There's also a big part of your job, beside the technical side, is also the human factor side, the ability to communicate and get along with people. Has that come intuitively to you, or have you taken courses on managing people, managing your own response to people?
I think there's 2 parts in the managing. I do have a team which I'm managing, but one of the other part is managing the commissioning process, because there's also some part of managing and doing some leadership. When we have to do the test or involve the designer in our review, we also do have a lot of different parties. And when you are assigned as the commissioning leader, you do also lead this process. And instead of leading a process where I say, now it's this way because our standard says this, I need to get people to feel that commissioning is a support process. Because essentially commissioning is there to help the designer and help the contractor. We just need to make them see it also as a help. So there's a lot of people management in getting the same perspective on the commissioning process. And getting that same perspective does also get the engagement and involvement in the commissioning process. Because when I have to do a system integration test, well, I can stand there with my control guy, but it's best when also the subcontractor for the fire system and for the ventilation plan, all are there and they want to participate because they know that commissioning is good for them. And even though commissioning is more normal in Denmark now, it does not mean that everyone knows what it is and wants to participate. So still the people management in that kind.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's my education as an electrician and working at the construction sites, being the guy who is doing the terminations and being on site. That kind of knowledge and has tried it is giving me a big plus when I'm doing this management in the commissioning process.
Yeah, you just said the magic bullet there, right there.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to come from high above, I'm the authority, and you're gonna do what I say, as opposed to, hey, I've been here, I've done this, I know exactly what you're going through, and we're gonna make this work together, right?
Yeah, I mean, the value of what you just said there is leading the commissioning team is like leading a tribe back in the days when you were fighting the Romans, right? And now and again, the king had to kill someone to show people he could do it. And now and again, the commissioning leader has to show their technical chops, right? They have to show they know how to wire something up, how to make this control sequence work, how this works, right? There is an element of leadership that has to be reinforced by your ability, right? I'm a big fan of soft skills and being able to, for me, the definition of a leader is someone who can motivate, manage, and lead people who are smarter than them, right? And that's certainly for a commissioning job, you have to do that, but there's also an element in commissioning where you have to have some skill. You've got to bring something to the table, right?
Yeah.
Just to provide your bona fides to be there.
I also do think that most of our subcontractors, they are specialists. They are pretty good at their stuff. And we just need them to do the combination and the joint venture with all the other subcontractors. So to enhance them, the ventilation contractor, he's good at ventilation plans. We need to enhance and show him how to do it with the BMS contractor, being that integration part and playing them good.
Yeah, you've identified the key issue in managing a commissioning team, which is like the controls person in and of themselves are very skilled, very capable people, right? But they're in a silo. And you've got to get them working with the other people and the other people. You've got to get them all up to the systems level and get them out of the silo at the equipment level, right? That's the definition of commissioning management and delivering a big, highly serviced, complex job like hospital, an airport, a lab. That's the secret sauce. You can get away with standing in your silo if you're doing a hotel, because frankly, no one cares about a hotel, right? Nobody cares about a hotel. Literally nobody. Not even the people that stay in it care, because they're gone within a day or two, right? It's literally the bottom of the food chain, hotel. But a lab, an airport, where there's life safety issues and consequences for bad work, that's where it really matters. But I want to talk about, so for our listeners and viewers on YouTube, not only is Thomas handsome and capable, he has more strings to his bow, right?
That's
so
right.
Who wakes up and says, you know what? Not only am I commissioning the airport project and leading the team, I'm also going to write a book and create a software product as well. Who says that? You
Thomas
did,
right?
did. I've never said that. So give us the story of that. How did the book and the software evolve out of that?
When I started to work with commissioning, I was eager to read more and learn more about commissioning. There was not much reading material in Danish, so the baseline to read was the ASHRAE guidelines and English stuff. So when I began to get a grip on how to do the commissioning, I thought, well, I need to share this knowledge with all the other in Denmark who's interested in commissioning. So back in, that must be 6 years ago, I started to write a book. I thought I was going to write a book, because after writing and then showing these pieces of paper, clearly it was not a book. So it became a website, a Danish small Wikipedia about commissioning, cxwiki.dk. So more like, what is commissioning? There's some info. What is the commissioning plan? Some info. But well, ever since that, I always had the feeling that I wanted to write a book about commissioning. And besides that feeling, we also need something in Denmark to brand commissioning. Commissioning is getting more normal, but we only have a Danish standard for it.
Right.
And it's not everyone who's going to read a standard and going into paragraph 8 and reading this process description. We needed something to communicate. We needed something to enable the students on our technical educations to have an easy way to learn more about commissioning. Because if commissioning needs to be the normal in Denmark, then there also needs to be other than Thomas doing commissioning in Denmark. So it was also in a thought that maybe if I write a book, I can help to show that commissioning is for everyone in Denmark, and not just the guys reading a Danish standard or ASHRAE guideline. So that was the starting, and then must be a year ago, a little more than a year, that I finished writing the standard guide til commissioning i praksis. Guide for commissioning in praxis. So it's a guide going through all the commissioning activities described in the Danish standard, ASHRAE standard 202, ASHRAE guideline 0, and then my own experience with additions to these standards and guidelines, but describe it in a practical way. So everything goes through, why are you doing this, and who should help you do it, and then it's providing you with the tools. These are the tools. Either use a spreadsheet, or use Thomas's software, or use another tool. It doesn't matter what tool you use, it just needs to fit you, and you can do it in these ways. So it's like, it should be like, not read from page 1 to the end, but you can look up, now I have to develop the owner's project requirements. How can I do this? Are there any ideas for me here?
Yeah.
And it
So it's like, that's it. Hold that up.
Hold that up, yeah.
There you go. I shall put a link to this on, so everyone listening, there'll be links in the show notes to the wiki and to the book and everything else. So the big question is, because I think a lot of our listeners are English-speaking listeners, are you going to do a version in English?
It's coming. It's coming.
Yes.
I'm in the process of translating the Danish book. There are some parts which needs some more work, especially the parts about the contractual, the contract sections, and how you perform the project phases. They need to be adjusted to be more general, so they can use other places than Denmark. So in the process, 80% done.
So when it's done, let us know. We'll do what we can to put the message out.
The Edifice complex will continue in just a moment.
Can you find the drawing and supporting documents you need in less than a minute? Now you can with Echo. It's simple. Just type what you're looking for and press enter. Echo knows your building. Speak with a drawing specialist today. Ask about our special offer of painless onboarding plus 6 months free with Echo. Visit podcast.thedsoffer.com. That's podcast.thedsoffer.com.
And now, back to the show.
So what about the software side? Because I'm sort of halfway through a book myself, and that's hard enough. But getting software developed, I had a business that did some of that on the side. My goodness, that was hard work. How was that?
Well, I always been in love with developing software. I started 17 years ago on my dad's computer, developing some Visual Basic. And then I have always been doing some kind of developing. And 5 years ago, I had to manage too many commissioning projects at the same time in my spreadsheets. So it was not fun anymore to do the managing part, because everyone would get a copy of my commissioning log in the spreadsheet, and everyone would send me back their comments, and I have to merge everything, and I didn't know the status or what was deleted. And so too much work in managing my projects, and that was the start in the development of CX Planner. So it started out as my own tool to how to manage the commissioning process. So more like an online commissioning log. And then I just used my spare time to develop on it. And now it's a full-blown commissioning software and construction management software, which we actually use for all our commissioning projects at the airport. So yeah, Netflix or developing commissioning software.
Kids, are you listening to this? Turn off the TV.
Just to recap then, electrician, energy manager, commissioning manager, author, software developer.
Exactly.
Boom. Mic drop. Thomas.
Well, it's interesting because you talk to kids today who are like, between 11 and 14, and they all want to be gamers. They're going to make a living being a gamer, like the other billion 11 to 14-year-olds.
Good
And then there's Thomas.
But I think there are some similarities between the commissioning and the software development. Both things is a lot of building blocks, and you need to fit those blocks together.
Yes.
And the computer is just telling you more fast that if you mix these two blocks, everything is going wrong. The building can take some more time. But it is mixing the blocks and putting them right together. And I love doing that with the software when it's dark outside, and then at day doing with a heating plant and how should these things be mixed together.
Yeah.
I think, are you Denmark's top nerd? I think you are. You might be more of a nerd than I am.
In some part, a nerd, yeah.
Hey, just out of curiosity, do you do any work at all with the Danish Technical University, DTU?
I haven't
research projects?
Nope.
Yeah. I got to be thinking, there's so many students that are studying various aspects of architecture and energy and environmental systems, energy systems, that there seems to would be a nice partnership with DTU and the airport.
Absolutely. We have had some collaboration with DTU, and I've also been helping some students. But in clean commissioning study, when we're talking about that in Denmark, we're referring back to a study which is 5 or 8 years old, by Rune Oren Augusten, who compared two large construction projects, one with commissioning and one without commissioning. And the one with commissioning was using 42% less energy and also less water and everything. So a great project. And I and the rest of the community in commissioning community in Denmark has been pushing for more of these research, more of these cost-benefit cases. But doing a cost-benefit case over commissioning is just tough, because if Thomas didn't found this error, then maybe the contractor found it, or maybe the designer on his final inspection. Who is going to get that benefit?
Yeah. Well, and again, my area of expertise is in indoor environmental quality systems, and so in Europe it would be ISO 7730, I think it is, or 12250 is one of the standards. So in the process of commissioning and reducing energy costs, did they look at any consequences on the indoor environmental systems in terms of post-occupancy surveys? Did they do that,
Question again,
so,
please.
Yeah, so when you looked at, was it 40% reduction in energy? Was anything sacrificed in the indoor environment in terms of lighting, air quality, sound, vibration, any of that stuff?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe they just turn the lights off and turn the fans off.
Well, that's always my question. When we're reducing energy costs, what are the consequences?
Yeah.
Because there is some, and it would be nice. And I think every commissioning project should be done within the environmental standards that the building has been designed to. You can't separate the two. And we know that in some LEED buildings, for example, that the energy costs actually increased, which was a response to the discomfort that was created by the architecture and the electromechanical system. So
that's just like a poof.
Yeah, right. So, energy and indoor environmental quality, you can't separate the two. And I'm always interested when I hear energy reductions, what the consequences were of that. Sure. Yeah.
So does the airport, so I'm sympathetic to what Robert said there, because I did a job in Toronto where we got called in, recommission it so we can get the energy down. So we found all the VAV systems with the fresh air dampers shut. So I set it all up for correct fresh air and the energy went up, right? Shocker. And then I got fired. So for delivering the prescribed building code fresh air requirement, I lost the contract, right? Awesome. That's everything you need to know about buildings in Toronto is in that. So the answer to that is monitoring, right? So if you and your team are in pretty much a perfect position to, if you use dashboards and KPIs and monitored indoor air quality, CO2, outside air consumption, and then just over a period of time, a year, 2 years, 3 or 5 years, and worked out if you were bringing energy down while maintaining benchmarks, right? Because that's what Robert's talking about. You got to be able to claim a win, a clean win. You've got to reduce energy and maintain benchmarks, right? And that would someone in your position is probably in the ideal position to run that experiment, I'd say.
We are looking into doing some kind of monitoring-based commissioning.
Yeah.
But it's still then we're starting to do the integration of different systems. We do have our BMS system, and then we have our energy logging system, and all the different factors. Because at the airport, at a gate, if you're going to test a gate, then at every 10 minutes the door is opening due to passengers going in and out.
Yeah.
Is that the same frequency the next day when we're going to measure it? There's so many different factors, which is hard. It's more easy when we're doing
normalize for that over time, right?
Yeah, over time you could some kind.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's just a thought, because my view is we're moving to a world of evidence-based performance, because the cost of monitoring CO2, temperature, humidity is falling and falling.
Yeah.
And the ability to collect that data is becoming so easy now. So even if you don't want to do it, I think this data is going to start getting collected automatically anyway. At some point, someone's going to use that data to make some decisions, right? And that's when things will get really interesting. And people will lose their jobs at some point.
Well, that's why I was asking you if you had any relationship with DTU, because, on the global scale of research universities, like they're at the top, their ability to do research work and synthesize it into something that's practical. They've been fabulous, for decades, and it seems it would make a good partnership. We had Dr. Peter Simmons on a couple of times when both Adam and I enjoy him, and he one of his projects was the Bangkok airport, and I remember him telling me the story that the architectural systems were really tested when a jet would pull up to the gate or back away from the gate. And the fabric on the Bangkok airport, it is a fabric. It's it's a highly engineered polymer with a mix of glass. I don't know if you're familiar with the airport, but it's got terrible sound attenuating qualities. And they didn't really, and it was, they built the test rig but these are things that they discovered during the engineering construction process. That airport took many years to build. But, in trying to create attractive architecture and manage energy, but then ultimately they had ignored the sound component. Had that continued on that path, the passengers would have found the airport incredibly stressful. To be sitting in a lounge, relaxing for your next flight, only to be subjected to the sound. Yeah, totally. It's so you have to. Everything goes hand in hand. You can't ignore, as I said earlier. Yeah.
But that's the system aspect, right? That building is a system, yes. And part of that system is noise abatement.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
and that's something that again you would, when you're working with people designing, like the hotel, for example. I mean, sound would be an issue, and it would be interesting to see the architectural solutions that they've done there to deal with the sound. Copenhagen's not like, it's not like New York or San Francisco or San Diego. That area. Nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's much nicer. But sound would be a concern for that location.
Just on sustainability in general, I'm not a big fan of LEED, but is LEED or BREEAM followed in Denmark? Is that considered a high status thing if your building is LEED certified?
I have done a couple of LEED projects, but it's mainly DGNB. I've only been bidding on one BREEAM project and never seen it else in Denmark. So it's DGNB, which people are using. It's DGNB.
Right. Okay. So LEED. It's interesting because whenever someone says, "I have a high performance building, I have a sustainable building," the word that jumps in my mind is, how is it sustainable? Right?
Yeah.
Is it because it's LEED Platinum or BREEAM, whatever, or excellent? And whilst I don't like LEED very much, it is a way of saying something, right? LEED Platinum says something. I'm not quite sure what, to be honest, but it says something, right? But it is a benchmark, and this is one of the problems. If I was king of the world, one of the things I would do is make benchmarking building performance for energy, make that an open source project everywhere. So then all of a sudden, every airport could be benchmarked against every other airport, right?
Yeah.
That's like the Energy Star concept, right? It's so good because the longer that goes on, the more data in it, and then you can compare building types, and that's how you benchmark and get things moving down, right? Yeah. A massive open source data project. This implies cooperation. On the construction site, that's almost like an oxymoron. But
it's a good idea.
I'm a big fan of open source. So when Margaret Thatcher in the UK privatized a lot of public utilities like water, and the pushback was, how do we know they're going to keep the water clean? And her answer was, we're going to make it law that they test that water every week and publish it on a public database. Then some nerd will always go in there and check that, right? And then you get this accountability and this like whistleblowing thing going. So massive open source data collection is something, there is some way to advocate that. You need someone like Ashray with the worldwide heft and communication channels to push that out. That would be awesome. But then it would need people like Copenhagen Airport to opt in and say that we'll share our data, So I'm full of good ideas. Yeah. None of them workable.
Yeah. So Alan, we're sort of getting to the end, and I still have a ton of questions for Thomas. We're going to have to get him back.
We'll have to keep you back when you drop the book.
I really would like to know, and I don't know, do we want to use this time as our fast question?
Yeah, let's get into. We always wrap up with some sort of rapid fire questions.
Yeah. So my first rapid fire question is, Thomas, if you were the chairman of the World Airport Authority dealing with COVID, what's your advice to your members sitting around the table right now and dealing with this pandemic?
That's $1 million question. not as fast. Rapid. Oh. I don't have any answer for that. Use commissioning, but that's not the solution.
But I mean, you're dealing with, the air quality systems, and so I appreciate your answer. Actually, it's a multi-dimensional answer, because you're dealing with people and their own hygiene within their control. The ability to mask up and stay away from people, but you're also dealing with the facilities themselves in terms of ventilation rates and filtration and this type of stuff. Has that, maybe I'll narrow the question down a little bit. If Copenhagen Airport had any advice for other airports in terms of dealing with air quality systems, what would it be?
Monitor, change your filter, monitor.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
Maintenance is the sort of like red-headed stepchild that no one wants to talk about, right? No one, just changing your filters regularly with proper bag filters at the proper MERV rating is a game changer for most buildings, right? The fact that you have to say that out loud is just ridiculous, right? Okay, so my question is, I'm quite inspired by your journey from what we would call a journeyman craftsman to leading what you're leading. So, if you were given some commencement advice, you're wrapping up your speech, you're at the Copenhagen Technical College, there's all these young faces staring at you and their phones, and you're wrapping up your speech and you want to wake them up, and what life advice would you give them?
Construction is fun. Construction is people, and people are fun. And people combined with technology are even better.
Excellent. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. I love that.
This is what people miss. Construction is something like 10% of most economies, right? And there are so many jobs to find and do in construction and property development and design. There's a place for everybody, really, if you want it, right?
Yeah.
You can have a great career and a great life in that field. You're a great example of that, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. So look, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's really good. I love it when we go across oceans and speak to people in other cultures and countries, because you realize we're all struggling with the same stuff ultimately, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully someday when air travel permits, we'll fly into Copenhagen and we can meet for a beer.
That sounds great.
Awesome.
The Edifice Complex will continue in just a moment.
Adam, it's time to thank some people who are on our side. Blue Rhythm Commissioning Software.
Blue Rhythm is the commissioning software I've been looking for. Most projects I consult on suffer from poor information and document management. Frankly, it's just chaos out there. Blue Rhythm removes this chaos. It is a secure, always available cloud solution designed to work on any computer, tablet, or smartphone. Their Android and iOS apps allow seamless transition between online and offline work. But what I like most about Blue Rhythm is their painless and fast onboarding process. Their team will bring all your existing forms and checklists into Blue Rhythm for you, or you can use or adapt their pre-built, pre-functional and functional performance test sheet templates. But it's more than that. It enables collaboration, automation, and easy planning and project management for all your projects. Blue Rhythm provides amazing support from a team that really understands your industry. To find out more, go to bluerhythm.com or call country code +1 612 460 8305. Also, you can hear from Blue Rhythm President Andy Martin on episode 26 of the Edifice Complex podcast. Robert, we there yet? I'm bored.
Adam, I know it's hard to believe, but the future has finally arrived in Canada.
How's that then?
Well, smart remote building and equipment management is now available from SensorSuite.
Go on.
Sensor Suite, yep. They're an innovator in smart building technology. We like them. They can monitor, control, and optimize anything in your building, saving you time and energy.
You mean Sensor Suite are moving Canadian buildings into the 21st century?
Yeah, I know, another hard thing to believe, but they're doing it, and they're saving owners money with efficiency gains.
Okay, I'm in. How do I find out more?
Got to go to sensorsuite.com or call 1-855-773-6767. And also check out the July 2020 episode of the Edifice Complex podcast and listen to Sensor Suite CEO Glenn Spry.
And now, back to the show.
Oh, Adam, that we're going to get Thomas back, because when he gets his English version of the guide out, but also things will have changed the next time we interview him. In fact, we love getting our guests back, and we'll make arrangements to get many of them back, because I would like to get Professor Roland Cliff back. I'd like to hear his views on the world view right now.
I thought about him the other day, actually, because I just love that episode, the ethics. It just brings up so many questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally, yeah. But Thomas, he brings a lot to the conversation in terms of commissioning, and other than a hospital, maybe a really large-scale research campus, airport's got to be he was saying 500 systems and get that commissioned in 2 months in one of the projects. You think about that, 500 systems, and I don't know, I don't have any experience with airports, but I just, some mental math, 500 systems, 2 months, you're going to be dealing with probably 30 to 40 people ultimately down the chain.
That's pretty tough going. Things have to go right for that to happen. Right?
Yeah.
But I've done 2 big airports. Back in the day, I did Riyadh Airport, and most recently was JFK. So JFK was 1.5 million square foot. It was $1 billion. It was the largest construction job on the East Coast at the time. It was just mad. It used to take you like an hour to walk from one end to the other and back. You know what I mean? It was just enormous. And it was late, but it was just huge. The scale of it.
Yeah.
It's just not only complexity with airports, but size. And then consequences, because the governor was going to open it and the mayor's going to be there and there's a flight coming in. I was literally testing. So things were behind, and we decided, okay, let's just get life safety done, and we'll just do the rest when the airport's open. And I was literally testing the sprinkler system, in the last few valves, 2 hours before the first plane came in. That building was signed off an hour before everyone started arriving and cutting ribbons.
Wow.
Talking about high pressure. That's the nature of the beast. But operationally, what they're doing at Copenhagen Airport was really interesting, because the fact, you're with the asset for 25 to 50 years, right? So you have a choice. I run it into the ground and do emergency maintenance, or I keep it running optimally. Those are the 2 choices, really, right? And they seem to be going with B, which is run it optimally and keep it going nice, right? Whereas a lot of it, I suppose LaGuardia is probably the worst example of that, where it's just running the ground on an emergency maintenance basis, right? So it's interesting. I think culturally, it's going to become unacceptable to do emergency maintenance only on big public buildings like that, where people go through health and safety issues. Now we've got COVID and people are aware of ventilation issues. I think that the Overton window and the culture is going to shift towards more emphasis on better indoor air quality, better quality of design solution for ventilation, right? More dedicated outside air systems with heat recovery, I think, will be a consequence of all this. So there's not many good sides to a pandemic, but that might be one of them, right?
Yeah. I wish we had had more time. Well, again, we'll get them back, and because there's an economic challenge for them right now with the number of travelers down. And I think he said before we started interviewing him that the numbers at the Copenhagen airport were down to levels from 1947. Was that right?
Propeller planes, right? That's no jet planes.
Right. So people need to understand that. So you've got a relatively modern airport where they've been implemented commissioning in the last 6-7 years. That requires a certain amount of revenue, which comes from travelers coming through in part. And with those numbers down, what is the economic story that they're facing? And that has to drive the Danes crazy, like it would drive any culture that was really concerned about quality and sustainability. But the Danes in particular, sustainability, earth stewardship is dear to their heart. They're leaders in it. There's no doubt about it. We have a lot to learn from their culture. But having these economic challenges, they're also, having to deal with that like everybody else. And I would have liked to talk to Thomas about that, what the impact is on that. He, like a lot of our guests, have an interesting story, and I like, and one of the things I like about the guests that we bring on is what it does to your brain, actually, Adam. Yeah. You come up with some pretty good observations and some good analogies and metaphors. One of the ones that you stated had to do with, traveling down a river and sitting there and being, a victim of of wherever the water takes you, or you can participate in your river journey and, try to do the rapids, take the rough turns, get some experience, and you'll come out a better person for it. I thought that's a metaphor that I'll use.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in accepting fate. You should fight to the death to change your fate in life, right? Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point?
I'm with you totally. And, but discussing Thomas's, his journey, as an electrician, and then, well, there's more to this story than just, hooking stuff up. And there's all of the other things around it. Where's that power coming from, and how does that affect Earth systems? And, so the guy says, okay, well, I'm going to go to school, and, starts to learn about energy systems and commissioning, gets his few jobs under his belt with some engineering companies, working for some big clients. Those are some big names, people, maybe I butchered the pronunciation that people don't recognize it, but, several of those are big companies, and you get that under your belt, and now all of a sudden he's writing about it because that's his passion. He found his passion, writes about it, shares. He found his niche, and like he said, commissioning found him. The airport found him from his passions, and good on them for doing that.
I'll tell you what, he's the sort of guest I always want on, because when you're young and in college, you don't really know what you want to do other than maybe get a date with that hot girl across the desk, right? So, he's a role model for someone who can say, yeah, that is possible for me. I'm here. He was here. He's doing that. That is completely possible for me, right? Because to sometimes believe something's possible, you got to see it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what that is. He's a winner, right? He's what the SAS, which is the UK version of the Green Berets.
Yeah.
Someone, there was an interview on TV, and they asked the commanding officer, said, "What are you looking for?" He says, "I want a person I can parachute naked into a town in the morning. By lunchtime, they're fed and clothed, and by the evening, they're running everything." That's a winner, right? And Thomas is like that, right? He's when you're young, you're apprentice electrician, you don't know what you do, but he found a way, and he sort of zigzagged into this thing. And he's a published author. He's published software. He's running a massive fucking building and production team, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing not to like there. That is inspiration.
Yeah, and then, and of course, when you're talking to him, he comes across as a really humble, solid guy. And I can, because I asked him the question, you brought it up, the soft skills, but what it's like, because there's the mechanics of commissioning, but then there's the people side of it. And, I could see, him in the field leading a team, doing the stuff, because you're a fan of Jocko, I think, right?
Oh, yeah, I love Jocko. He's hilarious. Yeah,
right. And I can't remember if it was Jocko that said it, but it was somebody from the Navy SEALs, or maybe it was one of the other business books that I read a long time ago. And it said, a true leader would never ask anybody to do something that they're not prepared to do themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so you get a lot of people who, are in leadership roles, but they're not leaders, right? They demand authority rather than earn it. But Thomas seems like he's the kind of guy that, I would never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself, because he would do it. You get that sense, right? And that would, I think, be attractive to somebody that's working with him.
I loved his answer as well at the end about construction being fun. Can be, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not all freaking grind and bump, right? It can be fun. And you should have a good time, and you should have a joke now and again. And yes, sometimes it's very serious, right?
Yeah.
it's not all serious. It can be fun, and that's something I think which is really underrated. You know, if you're in construction and design and production of property, you have opportunities to meet loads of interesting people, travel, do things like differently on every job.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's such an undersold profession and career, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is.
It's because we've not got many. We need a Conor McGregor to go around and like, you know, this is what it's like.
Yeah, totally.
No, that's my take anyway. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm hoping we're doing here is providing examples like Thomas that people can go, you know, I can do that. I'm going to try and be that like that, or I'm going to be better than that. You know, that's really one of the side effects I'm looking for here, because that wasn't there for me. I just stumbled blindly and luckily into my career. You know, there was zero planning, absolutely zero.
And what I like about guys like Thomas, and of course we've seen many of them on our podcast, and to some degree you and I sort of represent that same personality, is that we're willing to put what we know out there and put it on the line and have it tested and not be afraid of the criticism that comes back, you know? And I think about, you know, there's a number of people that, and that happens at all kinds of scales, you know, where you have individuals like Emily, for example, you know, that puts everything out there on the line and making a stand on it, or you get, you know, where she's dealing with, you know, residential buildings, or you get guys like Thomas who's dealing with the Copenhagen airport, or you get guys like Peter Simmons who's working on some of the biggest buildings around the world, but they're not afraid to put it out there. Yeah. You know, they will put it out there. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a huge lesson for people listening. You know, the students on the line here are listening, is that, you know, you can spend your whole life sitting in the shadows of others and be a sniper, you know, in the stands, criticizing what everybody else is doing and not provide solutions and not let anybody know what you're doing, or get on the damn field and get your knees bloody, you know, bang it up, right? Get in there in the scrum and shake it up and put everything that you know on the line and share that. And I'll tell you what, the world has way more respect for those kinds of individuals than anybody else, you know?
Damn right. You can't, life is a participation sport, right? You have to. There's no two ways about it, right? Yeah. I always love the story when you read some of the obituaries in the paper of a life well lived. You know, he went there, he didn't die, he got this, he did that, you know, and he's gone, right? But that is a life well lived. Sometimes you read it and think, that was a life well lived, right?
Yeah.
You know, totally. There's adversity. It's not all rainbows and unicorns.
You know, it's funny when I look back at my own career, which I'm still enjoying it, even from a retired position. But, you know, I've been in fires in Santa Rosa. We had to evacuate. I was supposed to be in the World Trade Towers the morning of September 11th. I was caught in a hurricane out on the East Coast. I was in a tornado in Edmonton. I was in floods here in the, you know, like I've had a lot of close calls. I almost got my head took off once on a trip. I got into an airport and we were driving to another location, and Dennis Woods was my driver. We were on the way to make a call, and good on him. He caught in the corner of his eye a rock that was flying out from the back of a big truck that was headed for my head. It was a multi-lane highway. In a split second, he swerved. The rock hit the window, shattered on. We're doing like 100 miles an hour, you know, because Dennis likes to drive fast. That thing exploded beside my head. We pull over. A bunch of cars pulled in behind us to make sure that we were okay, right? You know, when you get out there, shit happens. But, you know, you live to survive it, and you live to tell about it, and you become very grateful for the experiences and the journeys. And you've had, I mean, I can't imagine all the journeys. Yeah. I
bet your dinner that evening felt and tasted great, right?
After every episode like that, they all do. You know, like, whew, I got out of that one. I can't believe it.
You've been listening to the Edifice Complex podcast with Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean. To access show notes for this episode, visit edificecomplexpodcast.com. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes. See you next time.